What is going on, squad? Welcome to another amazingly informative and educational and an entertaining episode of the Make Fit Happen podcast. I am your co-host, Jupe Inkton, the Hyped Hands Bornman, and joining me, as always, is Amanda. Whose chair is that? Kim. And our co-host, that is our intermittent host every once in a while, is the good boy, Steven Feel Think Fit. What's going on, y'all? How is y'all's Sundays doing today?
It's going pretty well over here, guys. Nice and humid in New Jersey. Amanda knows.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Texas is getting there, too. We just came back from Fredericksburg for our little mini vacation, and it was a blast. So that was good. It was good.
It's raining here, is all I'm gonna say. But it's beautiful. We just got a one of those bougie ass like mesh outdoor couches.
You fancy, huh?
Yeah. So I took me all day yesterday to put it together because we received 3 boxes and it said 3/3 on it in marker, and I was like, hell yeah! So I put it all together, and I was like, I'm missing something, and then I read the box again, and there was also no instructions, so I just winged it. And then on the side of the box it says this will arrive in 4 packages. If they arrive separately, we recommend waiting to put them together until you have all 4. And of course, the 4th one that's not here yet is the one that has the instructions in it. So I completely had to just guess how everything went. So it was fun.
Oh, so you man did it. You did man things where you don't read instructions.
So it's funny you say that because Katie makes fun of me because I'm the one that still has my instruction booklet from my Instapot that I've had for 4 years.
Just in case.
Because that's how I am with instructions. I keep the instructions for everything. And now she's like, why do you have
I'm the same way. I keep instructions for everything just in case. Because you know why? Because every guy I've ever dated and then my dad all don't read instructions. They just do things. Yeah. And then it takes them twice as long. And I spend 5 minutes reading something. I'm like, oh, here. I'll just do it.
Which one are you? Which one are you, Steven? Are you an instruction person? Are you like?
You got to read the effing manual, man. RTFM. That's like.
Thank you.
OG knowledge right there.
So my most recent one is my parents installed they had pre-built into their townhome is a camera, and with the camera comes a electronic lock. And you have to set up the electronic lock, right? So apparently my dad spent 45 minutes, could not get this electronic lock to work. Like, couldn't get it set up, whatever, right? So I come over because my mom needed me to lift something, as usual.
Of course.
And
who am I going to call when I need somebody to lift something? Amanda.
And as usual, I come over, I lift the stuff, and then she's like, hey, your dad spent 45 minutes on this. Can you try to figure it out? I was like, sure. So I look at it, and I'm like, oh, it has an account. I was the one that set up all the accounts for them because I'm good at the technology stuff. So I was like, all right.
Don't ever do that.
Digging your own grave.
That's where you put yourself in a box right there.
I know. It's not my email, though. And I wrote them. I made it the same email and the same password for everything. Right. It's their email and their doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. I already know. I've never met your parents, but I already know. Amanda, what's the password for my iPad? Mom, it's your email and password. I know it's mine, but you set it up. What's my password?
I know it's mine, but you fucking set it up, so I don't remember what it is. So it took me all of 3 minutes to get that lock working. And I was like, all right, here you go. This is how it works. You press this button. What do you want the code to be? So I set up the code, and I was like, all right, it's done. And she was like, are you serious? That's it? And I was like, yeah, it's really not that complicated.
Yeah.
Would you agree we're the tech support generation?
I would agree 100%.
Yeah. The one that gets me like
Jupe and I worked at Verizon, and we're super. I would say out of all of our employees, though, you and I were the nicest when it came to people who couldn't figure out their technology.
The one that gets old me. Oh, I do not anymore. The one that always gets me is I need all my stuff transferred from phone to phone, and it's always I need all my stuff transferred from phone to phone, and it's like, do you know how to read words? It's like, yeah, I sure do. It's like, literally, it tells you, press this button right here with arrows. Press this button here if you want your contacts. Well, I just don't think I could do it. And I'm like, you're just choosing not to at this point. Like, I'm all.
Or the other one where it's like, what do I do next?
Excuse.
What do I do next? And it's like, well, if you read the instructions.
Yeah, I used to when I worked in the store, and now that I'm not in the store, I don't.
Yeah.
Speaking of setting things up, you like that? Here's a nice little segue. Speaking of setting things up, we're going to go over today setting ourselves up for success in injury prevention. So we're going to be going over a whole bunch of good stuff on how to basically prime your body to make sure that you're getting the best possible performance and preventing yourself from all of those boo-boos, because having setbacks and getting boo-boos in the gym is the last thing that we ever want to do. So first thing we're going to be going over is warm-ups. So I'm going to go over to Mr. Steven. Steven, why can't I just jump into my workout immediately? Like, what is it about warming up that is so important to the human body?
Well, why don't we go ahead and start with the classic rubber band scenario. The rubber band scenario, of course, is referring to your muscles as the rubber bands of your body, right? And if you had let's say a rubber band sitting in the freezer, because we all have rubber bands in our freezers, right? So you're going to go ahead and take that ice cold rubber band. Absolutely, got to have them chilled, and you're going to pull that open, and it's not going to go so far. And in fact, if you stretch it to its limits and then beyond that, it's likely going to snap real easily. It's a cold rubber band, right? We don't want that cold rubber band. We're doing high intensity weightlifting, high intensity cardio, really any exercise at all. So on the contrary, if you had a nice preheated rubber band, let's say you had that sucker, sitting in your oven, maybe just chilling at like, I don't know, a cool 100 degrees, 130 degrees, something real low temp, just simmering, If you have that rubber band and you take that and you start to stretch that, you'll find that the limit is actually quite farther than the ice cold freezer rubber band. And in fact, if you keep stretching it, it's a lot more pliable before it's going to snap and break loose on you. And that analogy extends to our muscles. And maybe you've heard this one before, guys, the rubber band analogy, but I find it to be the most simple, straightforward way of explaining it.
I would agree.
I've never heard the frozen rubber band analogy, so that's a new one for me. But it definitely puts a visual representation, and it makes total sense. Absolutely.
Certainly. Well, so with your muscles, right? They're they are your rubber bands in this analogy, right? So when you're training, you're doing weightlifting, any type of exercise, your muscles have to stretch and they have to contract just like a rubber band would. So we don't want our muscles to snap. We don't want to tear a muscle. We don't want to strain a muscle. So that is essentially why we're warming up, among some other reasons, right? We want to get the blood flowing. We kind of want to prime our metabolism for exercise and physical activity. So there's some other factors there aside from just the physical nature of preheating or warming up your muscles and your joints. But yeah, Amanda, you wanted to chime in, so hop in.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I like your analogy. And I would say, I don't know if you have this built in for clients, but when I was a personal trainer, I always had like 5 to 10 minute warm up in like every single workout, just because I knew if I didn't put it in there, they wouldn't do it. Like if you didn't make it mandatory as part of their workout, they just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I've ran into that before. I try to encourage people on day one, to focus on that warm up. So in fact, like the first workout routine that I even give anyone is the warm up routine. Like I make it its own separate workout on day one, so that way they learn that, and I'm basically telling them right up front, hey, you got to do this exact sequence of movements every single time before you work out, no matter if it's cardio, weightlifting, whatever.
Gotcha. No, that makes total sense. So what is the pros? Like if I'm going to take person A and just throw them straight into whatever training, and then person B have them warm up first and, do that kind of stuff, like what can I expect that person B will have better than person A?
Yeah, great question. Person B who's warming up, they're going to have a lot more range of motion and flexibility. So right off the bat, they're going to be able to get deeper in that squat. They're going to be able to bend over with better posture, neutral spine into a deadlift. Their shoulders are going to be more pliable and less achy after their workout as a result. And with greater range of motion and flexibility, usually comes greater strength. because typically the best contraction you'll get from a muscle is from its deepest stretch position. So kind of like a maximal stretch will lead to a maximal contraction if you have, good healthy joints and good range of motion there. So that would be, number one. Number two would be just the risk of injury is reduced so much, right? You kind of prefaced before we even got into this topic that, we don't want to get injured. The last thing you want to do when you're on like a fitness journey, working out for the first time, or, you're an experienced athlete, you don't want to get injured. You don't want to have a setback that keeps you out of the gym or from training for weeks or, gosh, worse, months or years, right? So the person B in this scenario who's warming up, they have a way less chance of injuring themselves compared to person A who's just jumping right in. I think you were talking before we started going live that you're going to hop in on 315 on the squats right off the bat. You're just going to come into the gym and just get under the squat bar and just go ape on it. Yeah, we want to be careful with that, guys.
Yeah, definitely not. I said that very much jokingly because I know that there's been this I think it's been debunked since then, but there was always this I think it was P90X who started it, right? That program was just like you have to shock the muscle in order to make it grow. I think that's what it was. And I definitely think you need to push yourself, but I was jokingly that like, yeah, you just jump in 315 on squats, you're going to shock the muscle into growth, which as we know from all
not
science,
a real thing.
Do not just jump into your max. We're not saying 315 is my max. I'm just saying cough, cough, but I'm just saying, that jumping in and just
Coleman going in his prime.
No, jumping right in. Just don't do that. No, without a doubt. So,
but I would say though that there is such a thing as stretching too much before a workout, because I've used it on myself before where I was curious to see because my problem's always been in my squat is being explosive out of the hole. Like that's my weak point in every squat I have. So like once I can get out of the hole fast, I'm going to get the weight up. It's not that big of an issue. And then with deadlifts, it was always, if I get the bar off the ground, it's coming up no matter what. I've never had an issue where I got the bar off the ground and I get stuck at my knees or stuck at my shins or anything like that. It's always just off the ground. And I experimented for like 2 months. I did more deep, like static stretching before I would squat or deadlift. And I noticed that I actually lost power doing that compared to not doing so much of a static deep stretch, but basically I would get my heart rate up for 5 minutes on the treadmill. And then I would do a little bit of foam rolling and then dynamic stretches. And that worked a lot better for performance than just static stretches.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, Amanda. Sorry, Drew, my bad. The static stretches, right? I'm sure you're thinking the same thing, right? Before the workout, static stretches, probably not the best. Usually that's saved for at the end of the workout, when you're cooling down, you're pretty much done with all your weight training, what have you. Warming up should be more dynamic stretches. And by dynamic stretches, I mean, kind of think athletic warm-up before a big game, before practice. You're doing leg swings, you're doing shoulder circles, you're doing these big, broad movements where you're not just holding a muscle in a stretch position for any length of time, but you're moving through your natural range of motion. And as you put it, Amanda, getting your blood flowing, getting your heart rate up, maybe even breaking a little bit of a sweat.
Yeah. So with that, what exactly would you guys say is a other than static stretching? Because like we just said, we don't want to do that in the beginning. What would be something that would be more that would be better for a warm up before you like what are some examples? You just gave some obviously, but like what? Let's say that I'm just starting out, just listening to the podcast. I just want to get started. Like, give me like a quick. Oh shit! Just dropped my microphone. Let's say I'm so excited, you guys. You guys don't even know. I am so fucking hyped right now. My hands are moving. I'm throwing shit all over.
Hype hands.
What's a good 5 to 10 minute warm? I know it's the fucking hype hands, man. Can't control them sometimes.
Control them.
What's a good 5 to 10 minute warm up that you would have somebody, let's say, before a leg day, let's say, right? Because I know everyone loves leg day. Maybe I'm a sociopath that likes leg day, but what's a good like 5 to 10 minute warm up that you guys would do for somebody that's ready to do a good leg day?
Yeah, should I raise my hand here? There we go.
See, you go first.
Yeah, thanks, teacher.
I bet to you. Your time.
I mentioned it before, right? So like leg swings. When I mean leg swings, I mean you kind of stand upright, you hold on to something stable like a wall or piece of gym equipment. You're gonna take that outside leg, you're gonna lift up, you're gonna do like a little football kick forward and backward, kind of like a pendulum. And I do it on camera right now if I wasn't tethered by this, nice little headset here. But it's really simple. It's really like natural movement. You're literally kicking your leg, free swinging, forward and backward, never stopping, just keeping it moving, doing maybe like 10 to 20 reps on one side, then turning around, switching which arm is on the wall for stabilization and symmetry's sake. You're doing the other leg, 10 to 20 reps. Do that forward and backward on each side. Then you probably face the wall with both hands and do the same type of movement, but this time going across your body. So kind of like a side to side leg swing. And just that general idea of swinging, right? You're taking, like, in this case, your leg, and you're swinging it through its range of motion very loosely, very naturally, just getting the blood flowing, 10 to 20 reps. You would do that for just about any movement that you're going to prep for, whether it's squat, lunge, deadlift, or if you're doing upper body, maybe it's not leg swings, but it's shoulder circles. So I can kind of show that here, but you might just take your arms and start doing big, broad shoulder circles, 10 to 20 reps in one direction, 10 to 20 reps in the other direction. Just, the more the merrier when it comes to warming up, I think, with dynamic stretches, because Amanda was saying if you do static stretches too much, you are going to, lengthen that muscle beyond its strongest position, which will make you weaker in a squat, weaker in a deadlift, or, whatever movement you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. What about, is there anything specifically that you like to do, Amanda?
So I kind of bring it back to my softball days, and usually I'll do a series of like butt kicks, high knees. One of them is like it's called hopping over the fence, but basically you bring your leg up, swivel it, and then put your leg behind, bring your leg up, swivel it, and then put your leg behind. Sets to open up your hips more. And then if I'm getting ready for powerlifting competition, probably 8 weeks beforehand, my warm-up will come from like a very low box, and basically I have a weighted ball, and I basically try to push up from that box and throw the ball as hard and as high as I can, and I'll do like 10 of those. And I learned that from actually an ex-boyfriend who's a pretty good power lifter, and he did that a lot to create that explosive movement and to get your central nervous system kind of like activated and get ready to lift heavy weight. Because a lot of powerlifting, when you get that heavy, is try to be as explosive as you can for a single rep. So I like those type of movements because it kind of jolts your system into high gear. But you don't have to do a ton of those. And it also gets your heart rate up, so you break a little bit of a sweat ahead of time, which I also think is kind of overlooked. Is you should do something. When we say warm up, like it should be something that increases your body temperature and increases your heart rate. Because like Steve was saying, cold muscles are not good muscles.
Not for working out.
Bad. Yeah, it's kind of like cold penis. Cold penises do not work well. Same as cold muscles. I don't know why that came to my mind. Anyway, no one likes a cold penis.
Okay. Blood flow.
All about that blood flow. See, Amanda, she doesn't even like my jokes anymore. Okay. So next thing, what are we talking about? That's what we're gonna do before we've gotten done. We finished up our training, our event, whatever it is. Is there can we do anything afterwards to kind of help that recovery process?
Yeah, so that's when the static stretches come into play, and they're sort of controversial. There's a lot of stuff out there nowadays about is static stretching worth doing? I can't say definitively. I'm not the ex-phys researcher, but for what it's worth, static stretching, that's when you're doing your traditional post PE class, post gym class stretches where you're bending over and touching your toes. You're doing a quad stretch, pulling your ankle up, and stretching out your thigh. Doing a calf stretch, just holding a stretch position.
Right.
Say, this would be like a nice little common shoulder stretch, right? I'm stretching my deltoid here, and I might hold it for like 30 to 60 seconds per stretch. It's a good little, range of time there. Typically, that's done at the end of the workout once all the stuff is done, as you said. And that's going to hopefully help, restore some range of motion. If you got real tight and swole and pumped up from your workout, maybe you're so tight that you can't reach behind your back or whatever, that could help restore some of that range of motion. Will it improve your flexibility in the long term? Potentially. I think for someone who's tight and stiff and not very athletic in their current state, I think doing static stretching at the end of a workout will improve their flexibility. But if you're already an athletic, active person and you have pretty good range of motion, I'm not sure how much more range of motion you're going to get just from doing, sort of basic static stretching. We'll talk more about more advanced stuff in a minute.
Yeah.
That's my take on static stretches.
Yeah, I definitely think that one thing to keep in mind is like, unless you are consistently doing that rehab, it's very important to continuously do that static stretching. And I'm speaking from experience myself. So for any of the first time listeners, I do kickboxing and Muay Thai and martial arts and stuff like that. And any time that I slow down or I'm not consistently stretching, it happened to me very recently, where I'm not doing myofascial release. We'll talk about that later too. We're not doing myofascial release. I'm not doing stretching. I'm not doing the post work, the pre work, anything like that. I will get an injury, and it just happened recently where I'm now on the back 9 of an injury that I just had. But it 100% could have been avoided if I was just freaking stretching. And so to make sure you guys are constantly staying on top of it, because it is something that if you don't stay on top of it, it will get worse. If you don't use it, you will lose it. 100%. You guys agree?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I also think as you get older, it's even more important to do more stretching, because daily activities that you do, or if you played any sports, there's going to be certain movements that you did habitually, for example, when you play sports, that will affect you later on in life. So like my example is I played softball, and throwing a softball like this hundreds, thousands of times, like my shoulders are not always the most flexible. Which then tends to hinder me in other aspects of performance. So I may not get a major injury, but if I don't stretch or I don't pay attention to it, I'll get little annoyances that affect my performance in my squat or my deadlift or my bench. So like my example right now is my left shoulder is slightly higher than my right shoulder. And so therefore I compensate. And then what happens is my right shoulder, when I'm benching, even though it doesn't feel like it, and even though when I take a video, like you can't even see it, I must be putting more force on that side because it's taking the brunt of the weight. So then what happens is I start to get pain in my bicep tendon. And then that affects me when I go try to do a low bar squat, because I can't pull my shoulders back as much as I need to because it's painful. And then when I go to bench, it's the same thing. Like that pain will get worse and worse and worse as I continue to work out, to the point where like I either have to take a break, I have to take a couple rest days to like let it heal, I have to ice it, I have to do all that kind of stuff. Whereas if I just continue doing my stretches post-workout, especially, not so much pre-workout, but if I continue to do it every day post-workout and continue to work on my shoulder mobility, that pain doesn't exist. Like it's completely gone. So I know it's a range of motion issue. It's not I injured myself issue.
Gotcha. Interesting.
You're broaching some good stuff there, like with the consequence, right? Like what is that's what you're kind of getting at, both of you. Like what is the consequence of not doing this stuff? And for not warming up, we talked about how that might increase your risk of injury or decrease your performance, range of motion. With the static stretches at the end, for people as they age, definitely sport related overuse type of injuries, or just certain muscle groups getting especially tight as we age. You're going to want that range of motion eventually. Like maybe you're not a D1 athlete anymore, maybe you're not a professional powerlifter like Amanda anymore, but you may just want to be healthy and feel good and not have like a struggle to lift your arms to reach into the cupboard or something like that, or bending over to pick up the laundry basket for our average James Joes out there. There's like some real just basic stuff, basic postures and positions that probably every human being should be able to get into. I'm not talking like a pistol squat here, but just even like bending over to pick something heavy up without pulling a back muscle, right? Like that thing a lot of people who don't exercise could relate to. I think static stretching can help. And just one more extreme example of a consequence here. Someone who's really inflexible. We've probably seen them all in our lives. Someone who has a slight hunchback, otherwise known as kyphosis, right? So basically a super rounded thoracic spine, or just spine in general. I've certainly seen a lot of elderly individuals who are walking around with hunchback and like they can't even stand up straight, let alone lift their arms up above their head, or you kind of get the picture. And then the opposite of that would be lordosis, which is like when you see someone whose lower back is basically perpetually in a hyperextended position. They're just walking around like they have a stick up their butt. That's also not very pleasant or comfortable, and
I mean, for some it might be pleasant, but not for the average person. I meant the stick in the butt. You'd be surprised how many people go to the ER for things in their anus. I'm just saying.
Thanks for that factoid, Jupe.
You're welcome. I have all the fun facts. Never mind. I don't want to violate HIPAA or anything like that. But okay. Anyway, is there in terms of static stretching? We all know all of our usual stretching. Is there any more kind of like niche thing? Let's say somebody they're really wanting to kind of advance their stretching a little bit faster. Are there any more advanced techniques that we can do for stretching?
Certainly, there are. I'm so glad you asked that, Jupe. Now, there is something known as...
What? Wow.
Yeah, how it works in sync. It's almost like we
reading minds.
Yeah. So there's something called PNF stretching, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation stretching, and that is a mouthful. PNF stretching for short. And this is something that's typically done with athletes, dancers, ballerinas. I mean, anyone can do it, certainly, but typically that's who you'll find doing it. And what is PNF stretching? Mm-hmm. Well, it's typically assisted stretching. You can do it on your own, but it's much easier to have a partner or a physiotherapist, a physical therapist, someone like that who's helping, push you into these positions. It's a deeper stretch than you could get into on your own using the assistance of the partner or some leverage if you have access to it on your own. And the idea here is that you're trying to push your muscles into their deepest possible stretch position. And then we're going to take advantage of what they call the myotatic reflex, a protective reflex that calms the muscle to prevent injury. And we're going to use that to our advantage to get ourselves deeper into our range of motion. So like a common example would be, let's say, a glute stretch. So, a typical like glute or piriformis stretch might be you're laying on your back, you kind of cross your ankle over your knee, and then you're kind of pulling your legs back toward your chest to get a nice stretch through your glute. Well, if you're doing that on your own, the furthest you can pull back with your arms is about as far as you can go into the stretch. But if you had a partner or an assistant who is, sitting opposite of you, pushing forward onto your leg, obviously they can help you pull your leg back a little bit further. But it's not just about pushing beyond that limit, but in fact, as you get to the limit with the assistance, there's some different techniques of PNF stretching. One of the most common is what they call a contract-relax technique. And essentially what you're doing is you're getting pushed to that limit of your range of motion, and then you're holding there with your partner. They're helping you hold that position. As you're holding that deep range of motion, you're actually going to contract the muscle that you're stretching and push back against the stretch. So imagine you're laying on your back, pulling your legs back, and the partner is helping you pull the legs back even further. Now that you're in that deep position, you're actually going to push against them, almost like you're coming out of the stretch, while they give you a counter resistance, holding you in that same spot. You're not actually moving anywhere. You're just kind of fighting each other, kind of pushing against each other. And you're going to hold that for maybe 5-10 seconds while you do some deep breathing. And after that period, you're both going to kind of relax and then pull yourself back even further into the stretch. And it's actually pretty freaky to see or to have done to you, because you might know your body very well and think, oh, that's my absolute limit. Like, there's no way I can go deeper into the stretch. But then if you have someone help you do PNF stretching, you can usually get like 5, 10, 15% increase in your range of motion in a matter of seconds. So it's pretty wild. And actually, it's one of the best stretch techniques around.
Yeah, I've had it done to me many times. I definitely hear what you're saying. It's like I didn't know my body could do that, but it definitely feels fantastic afterwards. Oh, show.
Certainly.
All right, so we've gone over all of the things that we're going to try to do to prevent all of our injuries. Pre-workout, post-workout. But God, we all have experienced it. We've had some kind of an injury, whether it be in the muscle, ligaments, tendons, in the joint. But man, like what all have you guys had in your respected athletics? Like what all have you guys experienced as far as like your injuries?
I've pulled my back probably twice.
Okay.
I was lucky enough that none of those times were discs, and it was the actual muscle.
Good.
And the muscle itself got super inflamed though, so like it looked like a freaking bulge on my back, but I had it looked at, so it was never a disc. So I was lucky enough there. What else have I done? I have broken and torn the ligaments in my wrist probably 4 or 5 times
Oof.
on both sides.
What? Doing what?
Yeah, that was from softball. So like one time was
maybe you should learn how to catch a ball, and it wouldn't happen.
Listen, sir, I had the ball already.
Maybe you should learn how to hold the ball correctly, and then you wouldn't get hurt. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, go ahead.
They were still out. That was the problem. I held on to the ball.
Well, good. As long as they're out, then that's fine.
Anyway, back to my story. So one of them was the runner was running home. I had already caught the ball. I was blocking the plate. She was wearing steel toe cleats, which are illegal, by the way, in any form, high school, college.
That?
You can't. Yeah, I know. You can't wear steel cleats or any type of metal cleats. They're always supposed to be rubber. But she was wearing steel toe cleats. So I had the ball against my chest like this. And then she came into me and like basically had her leg out and kicked it into my chest. And then basically my arm curled like this around it because I was trying to protect the ball so it wouldn't pop out. And her cleat went directly into my wrist. And it went through the bone, through the ligament into my wrist. So that one hurt like a son of a bitch.
Yeah, sounds like she sharpened
the
her
other
cleats.
time. Yeah, the other time I broke it was I flipped over a dugout to catch a foul ball. So that one I broke a lot of stuff because I landed on the cement steps, but
damn,
still caught the ball. And then the 2 other times that I really strained the ligament was I was rollerblading when I was younger, and I took a pretty nasty fall, and I tried to catch myself with my hands, which most people do, and I ended up doing a pretty nasty impact to my wrist. So
I just fall
one
on
of the
my
ligaments
face.
I
That's why I look like this.
Yeah.
And I don't catch myself. I just keep I just this is not my this is not my money maker, so I just fall on my face.
But those are probably the worst ones besides like rolling an ankle. Like I've rolled my ankle a bunch of times, but
yeah. What about you, Steve? You have some injuries too, right?
Yeah, well, so I was going to start with the rolling of the ankle. I can't even count how many times I rolled my ankle as a kid. I mean, luckily not any times recently,
so
but yeah, my left ankle especially is noticeably less stable than my right side. But some of the major injuries I've had, probably the biggest one was when I was in senior year of high school. I was on the wrestling team, my first time wrestling ever, first season wrestling. And one of the more experienced guys on the team, who's an asshole, he threw me with a hip toss in practice and just threw me like as hard as he possibly can without any warning or like, I was new, you know what I mean?
Like, fuck that guy. He's a dick.
It was pretty shitty, I felt. And he was super proud of himself, of course. But anyway, he hip tosses me and I fall onto my back. But if you know how a hip toss is done, I'm sure, Jupe, you know how a hip toss is done. But they grab your arm, they kind of like step into you and then, toss you over them. And he grabbed my left arm and threw me. And when I got back up to my feet, I like tried to use my arm, like you do, and it didn't want to work. I suddenly I couldn't do anything with my arm. Like I went to go lift it up, and I just could move a little bit, but I couldn't lift it. I couldn't do anything with it. But hey, look, now I can, right? So ended up going to the doctor, and they did whatever X-ray, MRI type stuff, and determined I had a partially torn AC joint ligament. AC joint is where your clavicle meets your basically your glenohumeral joint, which is like your shoulder joint. So there's a couple ligaments there that hold it together. And they said it was partially torn and a low grade, which was good news because it didn't require surgery. But I couldn't use it for like a couple weeks.
But you couldn't use your arm?
Yeah, I couldn't use my arm for like a good while, a good couple weeks.
Wow.
And I just had to stop doing everything with that left side. And that was rough. And then eventually it just healed on its own.
Hurting ligaments sucks.
Takes a long time to heal. Muscle is one thing.
Yeah, because they don't get a ton of blood flow to the ligament compared to your muscle. So like you have to think about like your muscle has tons of blood vessels running through it, so it's getting tons of blood flow through it. Your ligaments is about like 1/16 of that in terms of how many blood vessels are in them and stuff. So that's why it takes so long for ligaments to heal. Is you don't get the same amount of blood flow, so you're not getting the same nutrients to help it heal.
Yeah, that's right. And it's just a little strap or connective tissue from bone to bone, so it's not like it's even connected to your muscle, which is getting a ton of blood flow. But that sucked, and that was like the main one. But then the other one that's worth mentioning is I was deadlifting one day. I was doing what I thought was good form, like stiff leg deadlifts, which back then I didn't have as good form. was doing it with like cool 225, which wasn't even a heavy weight for me. I was just kind of repping it out. And somewhere in the middle of my set, all of a sudden my left leg buckled and the bar just came falling down onto my feet. And I didn't know what the hell happened, because I'm actually a really good deadlifter, and I was, really comfortable deadlifting that weight and twice that weight even, so it just kind of came out of nowhere. And like I basically couldn't walk for a moment, and I had to hobble away, and I tried standing up, and I could kind of put a little weight on it, but I couldn't really walk with it anymore. So next thing you know, I'm calling my brother to come pick me up from the gym, and I never actually got that one assessed, believe it or not. At the time, I was a super badass, so I just kind of went home and just stopped lifting for a while.
You're just like, fuck it, I'm fine. Fuck it.
I knew it was fucked up, and I knew I couldn't use it anymore or train it, at all. So I just accepted that immediately. Right. But I just wanted to see what happened if I just kind of like rested for a couple of days, and it slowly got better. Within like 2 to 3 days, I was able to like walk on it okay. And since then. Certainly my left hamstring is a little bit less, strong, a little bit less developed on my right side. And it's very noticeable. Like if I go to do a deadlift now, the left side, I don't have as good engagement on that left hamstring. So my right hamstring, my right glute, really my entire right leg, so much more stable, so much stronger, so much more power off my right leg. My left one, since that happened, I do a lot of, a lot less power on that side. I would do a lot of unilateral training. So I did like a lot of like single leg press, single leg deadlifts to try to restore it, which does help, but it'll never be the same again. And this is why you don't want to mess around with injuries, guys.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Do you guys think that any of your injuries could have been, or do you guys think you warmed up properly for those? Looking back now, like knowing what you know now, do you think you warmed up properly and like got your CNS right before you guys, like, obviously you can't predict your fucking hand and some dumb bitch fucking stabbing you in the hand with her cleat, but
I was about to say, like, my more serious ones, no, they couldn't have been prevented. They were just like freak sports accidents. Right. But my little annoying ones, oh yeah, if I had stretched better, they probably would have been prevented.
Yeah. Do you think yours as well, Steve? Do you think yours as well?
Kind of the same, right? Like getting hip tossed by Dick. Couldn't really have avoided that unless I just wasn't on the wrestling team.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah. Is his actual name Dick, or are we just calling him Dick for the podcast?
No, he's Little Dick because he was so happy about hip tossing Steve. He's got a little dick.
He was pretty proud of himself, definitely. That's the part I do remember pretty well. But that one couldn't have been avoided unless I wasn't wrestling. The other one, I was warming up back then, maybe not enough. I don't know. I think it was really a technique issue. So like back then I was trying to do a stiff leg deadlift, which, for those who are listening who don't know, it's basically like a normal deadlift, but you're intentionally keeping your knee joint a little bit straighter. I don't know if back then I was trying to lock out. I don't think I was locking out, but I was probably pretty close to locking out. And I'm a pretty tall guy. I'm like 6'2", and I'm definitely like more leggy than I am torso. So even me being close to lockout with my legs, like that's a very stretched hamstring. So, me loading it up with 225 and it's already the weaker side. And hey, that's the side I said I rolled my left ankle more on, right? So you don't know if that's connected. It was very sudden. So I don't know. Maybe if more warm-ups could have helped, but probably just better technique.
Yeah, I think that, and it's so funny you said that about your ankle, because I've found that 95% of my injuries at this point in time, like I would say, no, not to toot my own horn, but to toot motherfucker, I do a really good job of doing preventative maintenance on injuries. And I find that many times my injuries are some kind of a chink in my kinetic chain. It has nothing to do with that specific area. So like recently I hurt my back, right? I was doing a heavy clean, and when I got to the very top, once I caught the weight, I had a quick little pinch in my back. And now that the injuries calm down, it's because my calves are tight, which makes my hamstring tight, which makes my hips tight, which when I got to the very tip top, I just squeezed too hard, and then it just caused all kinds of injuries. Like, I guarantee you, and this is because I wasn't static stretching or doing any kind of myofascial release. So in my opinion, it all starts from the bottom up. So, and it just causes chinks in the chain as you go up, it's crazy stuff. So when you guys had when you guys had those injuries, how did you guys train around your injury specifically? Because obviously, unless it's some kind of like other than we're gonna forebode the freak accidents where you had to have surgery / doctor's orders. So we're gonna talk about the small little, the ones that piss us off, where it's like, man, like my back is killing me today or whatever it is. How do you guys go about training around those injuries? Because we don't want to just stop completely unless it's something that's absolutely debilitating. But if it's not debilitating, how do you guys train around those injuries?
I was about to say, you took the words out of my mouth, because those little injuries, the first thing I am is just fucking pissed off.
Because you know, angry. You're just, because it's not anything horrible. Because I know. You're just like,
not only that, but it's like it sets everything back, which just makes me more pissed off. You know what I mean? So like all the stuff I want to do, I can't do. So usually what I have to do is I can't lift as heavy. Like I basically have to go 50% on everything. Right. And my exercises tend to be like, when I hurt my back, for example, I tended to do more exercise that supported my back. So I had to do more machine work, and I didn't do a lot of barbell work because I was so nervous about either making it worse or compensating somehow and injuring some other part of myself. And then I did way more post-workout stretching to really like get in that area. And then the biggest thing I had was so much inflammation. So I was taking a ton of fish oil because I know that helps lower inflammation. And then after every workout, I was icing it for at least 20 to 25 minutes to try to lower that inflammation down. That was probably the worst, the lengthiest injury I had, because that was like 8 months until it was 100%. Like, it did get better in that time, but to the point where like I didn't have any more pain, I wasn't nervous about it anymore, was like 8 or 9 months.
Gotcha. And then
the idea of
you found yourself doing like you found yourself doing, like, for example, for chest, like more hammer strength stuff versus like bench press.
Correct, because I wanted something that would support my back, so I didn't leave it in a vulnerable position.
Nice. Love it. What about you, Steve? What did you do for your, what was your injury specifically that you're training around, and then what did you do around it?
Well, I'll give you one actually recent that has happened. It's a very minor nuisance. I wouldn't call it an injury. I suspect it's like a minor nerve impingement in my left thigh or left hip area. But it's really when I'm in a deep squat-like position. If I flare my knees open and kind of push my hips open, I'll get a sudden like pinchy, like burny sensation kind of along my left upper thigh, which is new for me. And truth be told, I've been sitting a lot more than usual lately. Maybe I've been a little less active and doing less stretches than I have in the past. So I think that's probably the culprit. Yeah. But how did I respond to that? Well, I started avoiding the position that was causing the issue, right? So if I was in like a deep squat or like a deep deadlift position, that's where I'd feel it. So, I test the waters every once in a while just to see if it's gotten any better. But I would try to avoid that position as much as possible, which just means, switching up. So if I was normally doing deadlifts, maybe I can't do deadlifts now. Did it bother me in lunges? No. Okay, I'll do some lunges. Or training a lot of upper body. Like a classic example, not even about me in particular, but if you injured your lower body, you should still train your upper body. Or if you injured your upper body, you should still train your lower body. Something to that effect. Or even more specific, if you injure your left leg, well, if you can get to a gym or do some exercises with your right leg, go ahead and do some single leg exercises, and vice versa for your upper body. Like, there's actually some really interesting research out there about people rehabilitating after injuries. If you have like one arm, let's say, that's completely, it's not working. You can't use it. It's injured. It's out of commission. Sure. You should still go ahead and use the other side, right? And not only will the side that you're training get stronger and bigger, whatever your goals are, it will actually aid in the recovery and growth of the other side that is damaged, the side that you're not even using in the training anymore. But there's kind of this, what they call like mirror neurons, where we're symmetrical, we're somewhat symmetrical creatures. We have 2 arms, 2 legs typically, and your left arm will respond metabolically to training that your right arm does, and same for your legs. So if you are, truly debilitated, you can't use one side of your body. It's really worth it to still train the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that, like, for myself, I had shoulder surgery within the last 12 months. And when I'm obviously, shoulder surgery is detrimental to a fucking MMA fighter because you're completely out of commission, can't do anything. So to find something in the middle, we actually did this cool drill where, like, I would once I was cleared to like get out of my sling, like temporarily, I would still train, but I would hold my ears. Like my coach was like, here, hold your earlobes. So those y'all are watching that. I'm literally holding my earlobes, and that's what's keeping my arms like close to my body, just like you would like if you're a fighter, right? Keeps it close to your body. And then I would throw all of my kicks so I could still rotate and be kind of normal, but I would just hold my earlobes. It was a very strange sight to see. So it's funny that you said that, just training your lower body while you're still training your upper body. In y'all's opinion, what would you say is a time to like what level of an injury would you say is a good time to like go see a doctor or a physician about the injury?
Oh, I would say like, all right. So one, if the injury happens, for example, and you know something's wrong, like
if it's an acute injury,
broken, you can't. Correct. Like, so like Steve's example where he couldn't push himself off the ground, like, you know, something is truly wrong and you should probably go see a doctor immediately. But let's say the injury wasn't like that in the beginning. But let's say it's a month or 2 months or something like that, and it's not getting better. Like, you're doing your stretches, you're taking care of yourself, you're eating right, but it's really not getting any better. That usually means that, you know, it's beyond like a simple strain or something like that. You may have a partial tear or a full tear, whatever it may be. Most likely a partial tear, because usually a full tear, you're in tremendous amounts of pain. Or I would say if it gets worse, like as you're going and you start to feel more pain or you notice there's less strength or anything like that, I would say at that point you should probably go see a doctor.
I'm going to hop on that, and I'm going to agree for the most part, but having dealt with some of these injuries and made some bad decisions and not getting seen, I'm going to say the general rule of thumb, play it safe. If you have, you know, health insurance, you have medical coverage, if you don't need, you know, to jump through a bunch of hoops to go get seen by a physical therapist or an orthopedic or something like that, if that's your situation and you think you have something going on, and the only thing that's, you know, stopping you from going is the time commitment, just go. Just go get a clear answer, get some imaging done. You only have one body, you know, like we're not at the point where we can just get bionic, you know, replacements for our broken and damaged bodies yet.
Sure.
But since we're not there at this moment, I think it's in your interest to just take the best care possible. So if I could do it all over again, when I hurt my leg, I would have had just gone right to the doctor right then and there. I wouldn't have, you know, been a badass, as I put it, and, you know, gone home and sulked.
Right. Yeah, I just like tried to stay tough. It's like, no, I got this, no problem. No, for sure. I totally hear that.
Not 100%.
Worth it. Yeah, that shoulder injury that I had, I guarantee was like over the course of a while that I let it sit.
Yeah.
And I think I think the tear got worse because it was a couple of injuries that happened. Like one happened in high school, then one happened in soccer, and then when I was fighting, and then like two of them happened at MMA. Like the three big ones happened in the course of like a month and a half, and then eventually got to the point where, you know, I was like, all right, cool, it's time to go look at it. I tried to just tough it out because I thought it was just I just thought it was a muscle, but you know, had to have it looked at. How would you guys say, from a mental standpoint, what did you guys do like when you guys were addressing those big injuries? How did you guys do mentally with like dealing with that kind of an injury that put you out completely?
I think the most important thing that helps me is, because I use it in all aspects of life, is it's temporary, right? So like, yes, you had an injury and a setback and it feels like the end of the world in the moment, but you also realize that it's not going to last forever and it's temporary. So the pain that you're going through now, or the frustration, or the fact that you're not making progress in your workouts, it's all temporary until you take care of this injury and move past it. Once you move past it, you know, sometimes it makes you better because then you're more cautious of either doing correct form, because a lot of people get injured just from incorrect form, or you pay attention more to taking care of your body pre and post workout. So then you become much more aware of like, hey, I should be stretching, and you do it on a more consistent basis before and afterwards. So even though it sucks in the moment, like it's usually a teaching, you know, opportunity where you look at yourself and be like, can this be prevented? Should I have done something that this wouldn't have happened? And I think that's how I stay positive, because I always just create a plan for like, all right, this is right now, but this is what it's going to be 6 months from now, and then a year from now, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Amanda. And, you know, just to add on to that, Not only is it temporary, but focus on what you can do. Like some things are outside your control. So if you get injured and you can't go back in time, can you? So you can't fix that. But what can you do to improve the situation? I mean, we talked a little bit about it, like, oh, you could maybe train around the injury if you're able to. Something else that we didn't mention is trying to keep your diet in check. So if you are someone who's taking fitness seriously, we all know there's the exercise component, but there's also the nutrition component. And what better way to recover from, damaged muscles, damaged tissues than to keep your nutrition as optimal as possible, right? So I think when you're injured and in recovery, I would say your nutrition is even more important then. And just to piggyback on that, your sleep. We've talked a lot about it on our episodes together, but sleep is where you're repairing, right? That's when all the magic happens. Your body fixes you up. So if you don't have a good sleep habit and then you get injured, that's a great time to start, taking that very seriously. Coupled with your good nutrition, good sleep habit will help you, recover much faster.
Yeah, I absolutely agree 100%. And then like the other one thing that I would say to my past self is don't try to be the tough guy, for sure. I definitely have been the guy that's like, oh yeah, the doctor said 4 to 6 weeks. I'm on week 3.5. Let's get this bitch out of the sling. And because of that, I 100% have had to push my recovery farther. Like I remember, I changed. I think I overheard my doctor one time. So when I had surgery, you're not allowed to get out of the sling, period. So most people, whenever they have surgery, they don't wear a shirt at all. But I mentioned to my guy, and I was like, oh yeah, I changed my shirt and stuff like that. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. I don't think you're supposed to do that, but then we'll check with the doctor. And then he shuts the door and he goes out, and the doctor goes, he did what? And I was like, oh, shit. And then it was like I put him in that sling for a specific reason. Do not let him get out of it. Is what I guess they didn't know that their doors weren't soundproof. So do not be the tough guy is what I would add to it for sure. What do you guys think?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Don't be a stubborn jackass like I've been in the past.
Yeah, jackass.
Yeah, jackass.
Yeah, for sure. Being patient. And like Steven said, this is your one body. You need to make sure that you are taking your time and being careful and that kind of stuff, I think. The last thing that we're going to be talking about today is, speaking of recovery and nutrition, we're going to talk about the effects of alcohol on your fitness journey. I'll be the first one to admit I definitely enjoy my beer and I definitely enjoy my whiskey, but I know that it is not helping improve my fitness. But Steven, I think you had a couple of things that you wanted to really talk about on this portion, correct?
Yeah, so why don't we just kick it off with some data points, some figures, just kind of set the tone here. I'm just going to read it straight up. So it turns out, guys, that worldwide there are 3 million deaths every year that result from harmful use of alcohol, which represents 5.3% of all deaths worldwide, which that's a huge percentage. That's a massive, massive percentage. Mm-hmm. And even more specifically, in the age group of 20 to 39 years old, which I'm a 30-year-old, I don't know about you guys, but I think we're right in the middle of that age range, 20 to 39 years old, approximately 13.5% of the total deaths in that age range are alcohol related. So if that hasn't already, scared you off of alcohol a little bit before we even get to the effects on fitness, pretty big numbers there. So alcohol, kind of scary stuff.
Right? Dang. I had no idea that it attributed to that much of it. Holy shit. So what exactly, whenever we're consuming alcohol, what exactly happens to us whenever we're drinking? I mean, obviously we know we learn about this stuff in high school, but just to kind of get into it, what exactly happens to your body in general whenever you're consuming alcohol of all kinds?
Yeah, certainly. Well, so we were talking about, how to prime your central nervous system before a workout, with the warm-ups, kind of getting psyched up. Well, alcohol is classed as a depressant or a sedative, essentially. So it's doing the exact opposite of what your warm-up and generally exercise would do. So instead of priming your central nervous system, which, by the way, your central nervous system is your brain and spinal cord pretty much, Instead of priming those things, it's slowing them down. So it's slowing down your brain function. It's slowing down your neural activity. It can result in impairment or even like respiratory failure, coma, or even death at the extreme ends of things. And, we know some of the typical effects: slurred speech, unsteady movement, poor reaction time, reduces rational thinking, all that stuff. So imagine, doing max effort deadlifts or shit. And imagine doing your powerlifting competition, drunk off your ass. How's that going to go?
I'm going to throw up everywhere.
Will you hit the lift?
That's yucky.
No, it will be projectile vomit and not hitting my lips.
Yeah, so lose is what you're telling me.
Lose. Like, it's just going to be terrible all the way around. For me, for everyone in the front row, like, just all
not great. They'll call that, what's that called? The splash zone is what they'll end up calling that.
That will be the splash zone. Yeah. Like, normally it's for blood, but in this case, it will be for vomit.
Yucky.
Yeah, we don't want
yucky.
We don't want depressing.
I don't want that.
Yucky. Yucky. No splash zones. That's disgusting.
Yeah, well.
Oh man.
So back to the fitness portion, right? So we talked about warming up, priming your CNS. Alcohol is doing the opposite of that. I mean, we talk about it a lot actually. Before workout, we might have some caffeine. We might have a stimulant, right? A pre-workout supplement, something like that to kind of get us going. So again, alcohol is literally the opposite of that. And of course, like, we're not even talking about people using alcohol before going to the gym. Like, I think it's pretty rare that someone's having a drink and then going to, get a workout in. But I'm just kind of mentioning, I'm kind of framing it that way, just to kind of give you perspective on, how it affects your body.
Sure.
But, what are the other consequences of drinking alcohol in fitness? I'm sure you guys know, but it's going to add a whole lot of calories to the diet, right? And not calories from protein, not calories from fats, sometimes calories from carbohydrates, depending on what type of alcohol you're consuming. But even if you're not having a beer or a glass of wine or something like that, a mixed drink, you still are getting calories, even if it's not coming from carbohydrates. It turns out alcohol itself is giving you energy in the form of calories, which is going to throw off your diet. So just in terms of nutrition and calorie sake, if you're watching your calorie counts, if you're watching your macros, alcohol is really just going to throw off all those numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
How
much is it per thing?
It's
7.
I was about to say
calories.
it's 7 calories. Yeah, 7 calories per gram. So fat's 9 calories per gram, and then protein and carbs is 4. So if you put it in perspective, and you have to think alcohol is a very small amount. You know what I mean? You could consume a lot of it very quickly.
It's liquid, right?
Yeah. So bottom
liquid diet.
Yeah. Bottom line is it's not fantastic for all those fitness goals. But not just on top of the fitness piece of it. There's a lot of other side effects as far as not hitting your fitness goals. The alcohol can negatively affect. Correct?
Absolutely. So the biggest one would be it interrupts your protein synthesis. So what I mean by that is you get a good workout in, you're feeling really good about it, you tore up some good muscle fibers, you're making some gains, right? Well, yes, unless you have that drink.
I thought I was.
And right.
I thought I was.
Now, your body is always repairing. It's always trying to recover from whatever, damage you've done to your muscles. That's pretty normal. But the consumption of alcohol is going to disrupt that. It's going to slow down or temporarily stop that muscle protein synthesis from happening. Which, of course, if you're trying to make gains, bro, you can't have that. So how am I going to balance my frat party and my workout life? I don't know. That's the question you have to ask yourself, frat boy.
Yeah, frat boy Dick. You got to ask that question. You want to fit in that Hollister tee with that gun ripping technology or the Abercrombie and Fitch? You can't if you're gonna drink all the alcohol, bruh. So lay off the jungle juice and go do some deadlifts instead, okay? Boom. That's your prescription for gains.
I love how the universal mixed drink of our generation is jungle juice. Like that's just what it was.
Yeah.
Really, it was Everclear and fucking fruit punch.
Correct.
Mixed together.
Yeah, and there's a little fruit in there too every once in a while. So yeah,
every once in a while.
Yeah. But so what is it? There's a couple other things. Do not just from a gains perspective, but from an overall health and hormonal perspective. There's a lot of horrible things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, on top of interrupting, growth hormone secretion for the muscle protein synthesis, it's also going to affect your testosterone production, right? So, as a man or even as a woman, you need testosterone. But for men in particular, we all know testosterone is really important, especially when it comes to reproductive health, trying to procreate. So, it can negatively impact your sperm count and your sperm motility. So if you're someone who's looking to have a child in the near future, which I don't know, we were discussing that a little earlier. So something important to keep in mind, guys, that if
Not
you're
trying
to get that done.
Not trying.
If you were trying, if you were.
For our listeners, every time Jupe says that he has big news or he has something exciting to talk about, my go-to is always to ask him, "Are you pregnant?"
Literally every time. Like, guys, I have something. I text Amanda. Amanda, guess what? You're pregnant. I'm like, no, I got new shorts.
That's always the response. Oh, okay. Well, okay. I didn't think this needed an announcement. I thought there was a mini Jupington coming along. What the fuck? Why you get my hopes and dreams?
I'm a simple guy. Okay, simple things make me very excited. Okay. Like, Amanda, guess what? Oh my God, you're pregnant? No, I just had enough time to mow the lawn today and I got a new lawnmower. Like, those are the things that get me excited. Okay. Because I'm a
You realize that you just choosing that example, though,
he's already a
proves
dad.
how much of a dad. Yes.
100%.
I had my.
You got excited about a lawnmower.
They're cool. It's all electric and battery. It's all electric and battery operated. Of course, it's cool. Of course,
that is cool, man. I agree.
Yeah, thank
should have been a dad like 10 years ago.
No, I had my jorts revoked from me, so I'm obviously backtracking here.
And your sandals.
Yeah, and my utility sandals.
And your car and your utility shorts, your cargo shorts.
I know all those things were taken away from me. What the heck? I'm obviously going backwards from being a dad.
His girlfriend says that he can't wear those things, that grown men don't wear those things.
You know what, man? I hear they have style. I love them too, but, that's what they tell me.
Yeah, I called them my utility shorts because that way it made it look like it had a purpose. And she was like, shh, stop. That is not a thing.
Like wearing 3 pocketbooks on your legs.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
She's been like, babe, where do you think all your stuff goes?
A spot for my wallet, a spot for her wallet, a spot for my keys, a spot for my phone, a spot for her phone if we needed to.
That would have been my argument.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. That's what would have been my argument.
And then like the little, the little strap, like when we're ready to go real fast, I pull the little strap on the top of the foot with those little like strappy sandals. Pull those, lock them in. Boom, I'm in all-wheel drive. See? Can't get mad at me for
Listen,
that.
I have the perfect argument for you. You should have been like,
"What?" Was like, I can't believe you just fucking said that.
You'd be like, "Look, babe, every time you hand me something, where do you think it goes? In these pants. Need these to carry your stuff.
Yeah.
And also, what happens if we're getting chased by a velociraptor? I need these shoes.
I have
to
go into all-wheel drive mode,
so that way I can grab you, and I need to be in all-wheel drive, so that way I can grab you and run as fast as I can, so we don't get eaten by a velociraptor.
Do you think Dwight Schrute would be pro or con on cargo shorts? Would he be about cargo shorts, Dwight Schrute?
Oh, pro, right? 100% pro. Do you remember the episode? He had that little Camelback because he said people that are busy require hands-free hydration, and I've never heard something ring. I've never heard anything. He's also not hiking. He's just walking around.
Hydration.
Yeah, with a little straw. He was also walking around the office with this Camelback on. Not out doing anything. Walking around the office. Requires hands-free hydration. I know he would be pro cargo shorts because that's why he likes his flip phone so much, right? Because somebody made fun of him one. No, we're getting off track. Okay. I was about to go down a huge office rabbit hole.
Huge rabbit hole.
That's how you get me out. The second you mention The Office, I'm going to mention at least 3 episodes and 3 quotes.
Well, here I'll bring it back. Okay. So we got on this tangent as I mentioned alcohol consumption, right? It's disrupting your testosterone production, and if you are trying to have a child or care about your gonads, your sperm count, it's going to affect that. You don't want that. Something else that's different from that. Alcohol does act as a diuretic, right, which promotes dehydration. And if you know anything about fitness, you know anything about muscles. Muscles are primarily water. They're almost like 80% water. So if you're all about those gains, if you're trying to get stronger and get bigger muscles, alcohol is literally taking water away from your body, right? It's expelling water from you. You have to drink extra water, make up for that deficit. No bueno if you're trying to get a little bit stronger and get it a little more fit here. So also exercise is already dehydrating you, right? So you have your workout, you already sweat out a whole bunch, you're already down on water, and then after the workout, you're like, oh, I could have a protein shake or I could have a beer. Well, if you have that beer, now you're even more dehydrated, and you didn't get the amino acids you need to repair the muscle, and you had the alcohol, so now your protein synthesis is not happening as well. So it's just all signs are pointing toward do not drink alcohol if you really care about fitness. Ever, are we talking about never drinking it ever? You could abstain from it entirely, and I suppose from a health perspective, that would be 100% best case scenario. But realistically, will we all do that? I don't know.
Nah.
Probably not.
I think some people for sure would, but other people, no. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think balance.
Go ahead.
Exactly. Balance. I would say that if you're habitually drinking a beer after every single shift and drinking, Saturdays or your Saturday fun day and then Sunday's recovery, that's not a healthy cycle to be in.
I agree.
But
we talked
I am
about before.
one that
I'm sorry,
I have a whole entire decanter. No problem. So I have a whole entire decanter full of some nice whiskey, and I'll have half a glass of whiskey maybe once a week tops. That's just what I enjoy personally. But we're not into the whole drinking every single day, fucked up on Saturday. If that's the case, I would, especially if you feel a longing for it, that's something that I think you should definitely see a professional for, in my opinion.
Yeah,
100%. I mean, I would agree. And then, so for example, I just came back from vacation, and if we went out to eat, I had at least one drink when we went out to eat. But do I do that on a weekly and monthly basis? No, I rarely drink now, especially because I'm just getting old and I get heartburn every single time I drink now. So,
oh my God.
So I just kind of avoid. I know. I'm old. If I have 2 drinks, I'm fine. If I have any more than 2 drinks, I will have heartburn the next morning. Guaranteed.
What?
And I don't know if it's because the type of alcohol I drink. I only drink whiskey, bourbon, or gin. I don't drink anything else. So I don't drink
kind of whiskey
wine.
Are you
I don't
drinking?
Drink beer. It's Maker's Mark, Jack Daniels, nothing crazy.
Okay.
Nothing crazy. Oh, and then Di Serono. Di Serono is my guilty pleasure, but
okay.
That's it.
And then you, Steve, how
Steve,
you
looks like you want to go on a whiskey
consume
tangent.
anything or?
I have a. You do not. Okay. I will periodically drink a beer or some wine. I would say not on a regular basis, maybe once a month, maybe sometimes twice a month, and very small quantities. I'm super lightweight these days. Actually, I've always been a lightweight. I was never a big drinker. I'll have one beer. I'm good. That's all I need. I'm, 6'2" dude. I don't know. I know people claim oh, body size matters with that. I feel plenty of the effects from one beer, and honestly, any more, and I just get headache or I just don't feel good mentally. So, everyone's different though. Everyone processes that differently. I know people will drink, 5-6 times that amount. And actually, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about was I mentioned it before, the calorie stuff, right? How, drinking alcohol, essentially empty calories in a diet, especially in the context of fitness. I've definitely had some clients that I work with where, we're trying to get them to lose weight, have on a calorie deficit, their macros are set, and they're not on vacation, they're not really having any major celebrations or, scheduled cheat days. But if I'm looking at the MyFitnessPal, I might see a drink or 2 or 3 or 4 over the course of a week, and they're not really registering that as a problem. And for me, it's a big problem when they're not, hitting their weight loss goals, they're not hitting their calorie macro goals. And I've even pointed out to several clients before where I show them their MyFitnessPal log and I say, look, you drank 300 calories worth of alcohol. If you hadn't had those 300 calories worth of alcohol, you literally would have hit your calorie goal for this day. But you didn't because you drank that alcohol. And I point to the next day and the same thing, and the next day and the same thing. So if it's that big of a deal for you, where like it's actually getting in the way of you and achieving your weight loss goals, or maybe your muscle building goals, strength goals, I think it's a real problem. And as Jupe said, professional might be necessary to help. Or just some self-discipline, like just really asking yourself the tough questions of, what's more important to me? The social drink when I go out with my friends, or just at home unwinding, de-stressing, or achieving my fitness goals.
Absolutely. I concur 100%. So with that, I'm gonna throw in a quick plug here. If you would like some more extended information on some of these injuries, I highly recommend this book that I'm holding up. It's actually one of my go-tos. It's called Rebuilding Milo. It's written by a doctor in physical therapy. He also has a social media presence called Squat University. Highly recommend it. It goes into we're also not getting paid for any of this. This is my personal book. I just like it a lot. It really goes into how to assess what your true trigger point is injury. So how to assess your what you're doing, where the injury is at, how to rehabilitate it, and how to prevent it going forward. So it really covers everything. But with that, Steve, where can they find you at on the socials?
Ooh, they can find me at FeelThinkFit. So if you're on Instagram, that is FeelThinkFit, FeelThinkFit. I don't know why everyone always has trouble with that one. And that's for Facebook as well. It's FeelThinkFitNJ. Or you can just, contact me directly at my email address, Stephen, Stephen, at feelthinkfit.com.
Boom. You guys, with that, this has been the latest installment of the Make Fit Happen podcast. Until next time, y'all, love, peace, and protein.